Good evening and welcome to Golden Nugget Nation Q&A this evening. This is the 13th of April. My name is Gary and I'm really happy to be here with you. And as you can see, folks, I mean, the beard is coming a little bit more fuller. You can still see it's dark around here. So those people who think, Gary, you should wash your face before you start, that's just the discolorations in the beard with the old hair being replaced by the stuff that's showing that I'm actually getting a bit older. So let's set that aside. I'm really grateful this week. Got a wonderful question that came in from Nico. Nico, I think, is Greek. And what he said in his question was, you once talked about getting beyond scarcity as a foundation for business. You've also talked about playing business as a long game. And you've also talked about being successful by focusing on equanimity. And I don't even understand what that word means. So can I help him to understand all three concepts? And so that's what we're going to do tonight. Very quickly, let's start with the equanimity question first. Equanimity is a concept that comes from Buddhist philosophy. And the way it was described to me was the ability to look as if you're floating above uneven ground. And that is being able to, whatever you're stepping on in the moment, maintain a real sense of balance, of being able to distribute yourself in such a way that you don't disturb what's beneath you. And yet to the observer, you look like you're absolutely in control of what's going on. Now, that doesn't mean that you don't have butterflies dancing around inside of your stomach. Your mouth is starting to go dry. You're wondering where you're supposed to be going with your next step. That's all part of business, and you have to just learn how to make the butterflies fly in formation, how to learn to take a deep breath and to think and to take dramatic pauses as you speak and you present yourself. That all comes in that format. But equanimity basically says you have such a sense of balance that everything is equal. Everything appears to be equal. Nothing really fluffers you. Nothing ruffles your feathers. You just move in such a way that looks as if you're just floating across the broken ground. So that's that one. I hope that helps you clarify, because this is something you just have to kind of discover for yourself. This is something you're going to have to walk into yourself. Now, you talk about the Tony Robinson quote. Tony Robinson says, you know, most people, when they come to the point that they want to do something for themselves, they're doing it because they know there's something missing in their life, usually money. They want more money, or they want more recognition, or they want more of something, whatever it is. And so for them, that's a scarcity. It doesn't exist in their world, and they're striving to obtain it. And he says, you can't start from a position of scarcity. You have to find a point beyond scarcity that's your new starting point. And that's where you begin at. And so a lot of people say, well, you leave scarcity by beginning to think in abundance, by beginning to see the world as a world with unlimited potential and resources, full of unlimited possibilities. I think it's very interesting. You can take people who have completed university training at the same time, who have gone through the various courses and gotten grades and, you know, wrote papers and all those things that you would say, well, that's basically kind of equal. But you have one person who never gets a job, goes back home from school, gets into the basement and plays video games for the next 5 or 6 years before they finally get kicked out or maybe inherit the house. Versus the other person who steps out into the world and takes on a job and a position and makes it theirs, and the owner of the operation sees them and does things to begin to groom them to bring them up into higher levels of responsibility, hence levels of pay. And what's different between the two of them? One of them saw opportunity and potential, and the other one said, "You mean you didn't give me a job? You know, I've got the paperwork here. It says I'm qualified. You just need to give me the job." And nobody wants to hire somebody like that. Nobody really does, except for maybe the government. But nobody really wants to hire somebody like that, because you all want somebody who is looking for, where's the potential, where is the opportunity, how do we make things better, how do I fulfill the dream of the partner by making it my dream as well. Those are the kind of people want to hire and they want to have out there. And as an entrepreneur, that's the kind of person you need to be. You need to be that person who is looking for where the opportunities lie. And it doesn't have to be that you find a new opportunity. It could be something that other people are doing, but you just have a sizzle. When I was a kid, there was a steakhouse. And one of the things that they did was they would bring you your steak on, well, it would be a wooden platter, but there was a hot metal plate. And they would put your steak on that hot metal plate. And when it got to your table, it was still sizzling. And it wasn't that the steaks were any better. It wasn't that the steaks came from different cows. It wasn't that anything was special about the steak, because it basically got cooked the same way as everybody else cooks a steak. It was the sizzle. When that steak came to your plate, you got the idea that it was just fresh, hot off the grill. And because of that, people were willing to pay about an extra $1 or $2 for that steak. And the steakhouse was always full of people. You would go there like at lunchtime or dinner time. You'd have to wait for a table. It taught you to make reservations. If you went there after the rush hour, mid-afternoon, something like that, you probably could just walk right in and get a table, but your steak still sizzled when it got to your table. So it wasn't that they were selling me a steak. They were selling me on the sizzle. And that's what you have to be looking at. Your steak may be exactly the same as everybody else's steak, but what is the sizzle that you're trying to sell to your people? And that is important, because you need to identify that in your avatar, your perfect customer, what you're selling is the sizzle to them. Now, I've covered the equanimity. I've covered you can't start at a position of being in lack or in want. You have to get to the point where you're starting from a position of abundance, where you see that there's abundance of opportunities, abundance of things that happen. And to tell you, quite frankly, I'm out of time for number 3. If number 3 was that important to you, please let me know and I'll do it for next week. But really, this is your business. You have to be the person who's in charge, who sells what you're doing. You have to be sold. You have to be so convinced that what you have is the right thing, that vibration goes out into the universe. I remember one time a small child defied me because they wanted me to give her, she wanted me to give her 50 cents. That's what she wanted. And she would not take no for an answer. And she literally looked me in the eye and said, "I need the 50 cents now. Please give it to me, Daddy." And she won at that moment, because there was no backing down from the fact of what she wanted. and I knew she wanted it. So I gave it to her. Might have been a weak moment as a father, might have been a loving moment. I don't know. I have no idea or even remember what the 50 cents was for, but I just gave it to her. Have a great week. Go out and win. This is your Golden Nugget Nation for today. Thank you very much. See you soon.